So the right hand, most common punch you're going to see on the street, big power punch. Difficult punch in a sense to think about avoiding. In the simplest terms, the safest place for me from the right hand is beyond the point of that right hand. At the point at which that right hand starts to take the other person off balance. Or it's here, which is the furthest point really from that right hand. So back here, you'll see people like Mayweather, use that Philly shell, that shoulder roll, whoosh. But also people like Marciano, whose position would be right over here. And what they're doing is they're taking their head as far away from that right hand as possible. They've got the shoulder there to help it on its way, or also to kind of just ensure that you've got a secondary. And variations of this using the kind of the leverage guard as a way of also helping that right hand to come up and over the arm there, protect you from it. But again, with that kind of that lean away from the right hand. So that's one kind of way which is strong. It'll take you away from that. In a sporting context, you play with that. You'll push it to its limits. Mayweather will get as close as possible to that right hand, so that when he flips it, he's got the inside that he's looking for, so he can counter, or so he can counter off that block. You don't need to do that in a street context. You don't need to capitalise to be in a position to counterpunch, because your objective is just not to get hit and to get away. So things like this are really quite valuable, because from this position, the right hand coming towards you, it's not that difficult to get into this kind of position, or this kind of position off that right hand, though it does base you to the ground. Another really high percentage way of getting away from the right hand is to get into that space, and you get into that space by crashing. As somebody's throwing a right hand at you, instead of moving away, you crash into that space. Now you don't just want to crash into that space, because if you judge it wrong, you crash into that trajectory, you could take that shot, and it won't be as powerful as it's just coming out as it will be when it's at full reach, but it's still powerful enough to knock you out. So you'd probably typically combine that kind of a crash with either a dip, so you're getting under that shot, or with something like a cross guard or the double forearm block. So you're crashing in, but you're also covering the possibility that you are in the trajectory of the right hand as you crash. So these are probably the two highest percentage, most dependable ways of avoiding that right hand. There are various other ways which you use in a sporting context, where you're pushing the margins more. For instance, I might slip outside of that right hand in a sporting context, so that I can then get inside and capitalise upon that. But if my foot position isn't optimal and I'm too far on the outside, I can eat that right hand when I go here. Similarly, things like bobbing onto the right hand, or even going into the inside here, and then crashing into that shoulder space. When I go this close on the inside, if I don't time that right, I can eat that right hand, back of the head and the ear, which you won't want to do. Especially not on the street, where that could be the end of you. So high percentage, moving away as far as you can away from the trajectory and the limits of that right hand, which worked very successfully for people like Marciano, because then what they would do, they would draw that right hand, and when it went past, they'd then come back into that space, and they'd own that inside space then, and they'd have a lot of body weight whoosh to bring back with them. And again, Mayweather, his whole defensive system really capitalises on that shifting the right hand out of the way and then being able to capitalise and counter. And then there's the crashing into that space option, where you're covering as you go in, cross hand, and you'll see people, inside fighters like Joe Frazier, always kind of looking for that, and Archie Moore, looking for that way of getting into that inside space so that then they can go to work here. That might not be your ideal in a street scenario. You might not want to be that close to somebody else, but sometimes when you've got nowhere to go, you've got no space and you've got no thinking time, that's the only place you're going to be able to go. There's a bit crashing in there, getting into that space. And at least you've avoided that big shot that could have knocked you out, and then from there, boom, you can start fighting your way back out. Boosh!